Hello, baseball and umpire fans, and welcome to The Leading Edge, where we talk with umpires about umpiring and look to cover topics on both sides of the plate. Joining us on this episode is a previous Newfoundland Beaver B Provincial Champion, has umpired or supervised at over 14 Baseball Canada National Championships, has worked 2 international events, and a guy that claims to have invented the hacky sack, Andrew Downs. Topics we cover are working the Senior Men's Provincial Championship in Newfoundland, practical jokes at national championships, ejection stories from his first international event, and much more. So, sit back, relax, get ready. It's coming. Interesting baseball facts or leading edge trivia. What Baseball Canada National Championship is the longest running consecutive event? If you said the Senior Men's National Championship...
No, dear, that's wrong.
That's right, that is wrong. The answer is the Baseball Canada 21U, or formerly known as Junior, Men's Championship. Now here's where the little interesting facts come into play. Up until the year 2020, the Baseball Canada 21U Men's Championship had been held annually since 1962, where it began in Montreal, Quebec. Now, I know this is typically the time of year when we start to hear about national championship assignment, and a lot of provinces are starting to prepare their national clinics and getting their umpires ready for the upcoming season. Now, unfortunately, we received some bad news this week. The Baseball Canada National Championships have been officially canceled. But that doesn't mean that we can't work to make our programs and become the best umpires that we can be. So let's everyone do our part so that we can eventually
play ball
and get back on the field safely. Okay, since we're on the topic of national clinics, who here has had the opportunity to tune in to superclinic.ca or umpiring across Canada? I know I have. I've tuned in every week. That's the beautiful thing about it. You can keep going back and checking out the sessions. There's been lots of great learning opportunities. You know what? Sometimes you go in, you hear it the first time and you process it, but then you come back and you hear it again and it kind of clicks. I've been using it as an opportunity just to keep up and refreshed on the rules, but my favorite part of it is tuning in to Leading Edge alumni Steve Bootang, Boots in 30. Now I have to rate the show 5 stars, but I don't really have an adjective for the comments that I can use except hairy. Now the reason why I use the word hairy is because there's lots of hair involved in the show. But one of the nice things that Steve is doing is that he is growing out his beard. And how is that nice, you say? Well, his intentions are on the last show, if there can be at least $1,500 raised, then he will shave his beard live on Boots in 30 in support of Umps Care. So check out our show description. You will find a link to a GoFundMe page where you will support Steve Bootang in shaving his beard so that he can support Umps Care. Now, if you're looking to check out the Boots in 30 episode, it's kind of exclusive. You have to go register at superclinic.ca. And it's always at the end of the day. So go check out the schedule and you'll figure it out from there. Now with this episode's guest only moments away, let's do a quick recap of the last episode where we had on, I don't even know where he's from anymore, but an umpire that's been around the country numerous times, Trevor Stoiko. If you tuned in, this is what you heard. And if you haven't yet, well, this is what you're missing.
I faked to throw it back to the pitcher. The pitcher's off the mound. The guy went off the bag. I said, thank you for the provincial title. And we won the provincial title. I got it. Well, my dad was an umpire. To be honest with you, I got the pleasure of watching my dad umpire for years for the Melville tournament. There would be Chad Wagner, myself, Drury would come down, and Stu. And my mom looked forward to it each and every year because they'd stay at my place. You know, I've known Stu for forever, and they would come down, do tournaments, and we'd have a blast. Murray Busis doesn't get enough credit. So after the game's over, he comes up to me and freaking decks me. This is Regina, for God's sake. Oh. I think he got 3 or 4 games, and I never did that league again. I can't remember what league it is. It's in Regina. So we're in Thunder Bay, right? And Alice Cooper was doing a few shows. I remember back, one of the nice things about it is, and it was only about 2 years ago, I had the pleasure of being on Peary Field. 40 years later, Terry Poole came back, and they dedicated portion of Peary Field to him and the street to Terry Poole. And my dad did that back in the 70s, early 70s. I had the pleasure of being on that same ballpark 40 years later. And that memory will always stay with me.
I love it, Trevor. Memories. Most of us get into umpiring for the money, but we stay for the memories. Thanks for coming on the show and sharing with us some of your fantastic stories and memories from throughout the years. Since we're talking about memories, I'm going to share a quick story. I really wish I would have brought it up on the show with Trevor, but I forgot about it. I have one of the best memories I ever had umpiring with Trevor Stoico. Going to lay the scene for you right here. Trevor's working the plate. I'm working the bases in a Western Canadian Baseball League. I'm in the middle. Pitch comes in. Trevor calls a ball. Now, let's just say this pitch went against the defensive team. Now the second baseman makes a couple comments. Nothing too loud, enough to keep it on the field. Next pitch comes in, ball. Now this one was definitely more of a ball than the first one. But of course, the second baseman is a little bit frustrated, so decides they're going to throw another comment out. Now the comments weren't nothing that were egregious. It was simply like the, "Where was that blue?" Or, "You gotta give that to both sides, blue." But after a while, as a base umpire, I'm going, I have had enough of this. I don't want to listen to this anymore. So I turn around and look at the second baseman. I go, "Hey, shut up. That's my dad." This second baseman instantly backs up like 3 or 4 steps, starts looking at the dirt, kicking it, doesn't even want to acknowledge me anymore. Second best thing is he never complained about anything the rest of the night. But the best part was the runner on second base and the shortstop were both like, "Hey man, don't make fun of his dad. Be quiet." I don't know if it's the best game management tool, but it's the one I used that night in Swift Current. And it worked. So Trevor, you owe me. Okay, let's move on. Of course, you know where to find this podcast because you're listening to it. But if you're ever looking for it in the future, Podbean, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, Amazon Alexa. We're also on YouTube now. Just go to any of those platforms and go Leading Edge Umpire Stories. Also, if you want to engage in our social media, head over to Facebook, Leading Edge Umpire Stories. Click, share, like, all that fun stuff. Please help us spread the great word about fantastic umpires from Canada. Okay, I've had enough of this introduction stuff. Let's get to this episode's guest. So without further ado, Leading Edge Entertainment is proud to introduce a man that's been to too many Baseball Canada National Championships to count on one hand, is currently the president of Baseball Nova Scotia, has umpired in 2 international events, and a guy that has a short fuse but a big heart, Andrew Downs. Andrew, welcome to the Leading Edge.
Hey, Phil, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Like always, Andrew, the pleasure's all mine, but there's something special about this episode. You're going to be guest number 25. I think we're going to run episode 28. But with you coming on, that officially makes it that all 10 provinces have been represented here in the Leading Edge. So I'm proud of that feat.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I do think it's fantastic. You know, it took Alberta and Saskatchewan, 38 years and a railway to join Confederation, but I was able to bring all 10 provinces on within 28 episodes. I'm going to pat myself on the back.
For sure.
Okay, one of the first things we got to do here on the Leading Edge is we got to give the guest the opportunity to defend themselves in their playing career. So, got to ask, did you play baseball? Were you any good?
Yes, but not very well. I was a pretty good house league player. I was a catcher, dabbled a little bit first base. I got the pitch when we were way up or way behind, more often way behind. But I did enjoy the game. I enjoyed playing it. It was the same it always seemed to work out that on my house league team, I always played with the same 2 or 3 guys every year. A lot of the other players rotated through, but there was the same 2 or 3 of us that played every year. So that was kind of nice. We all went to different schools, but we got to see each other in the summer and play. So that was a great part of it.
It's exactly what I love about baseball. It always brings everybody back together.
Yeah.
Even though you might not have pitched that often, what was your specialty pitch?
Knuckleball.
Man, every good umpire and every non-pitcher out there always has a knuckleball. Was it any good?
Not really. I was able to get out, so it might have been okay.
Okay is all that matters when you're down by a bunch. You just want to get out of there. But you know what? Sometimes some people were not allowed to play positions growing up, and one of the positions I wasn't allowed to play was first base because I couldn't catch the ball. So considering you made a career at first base, you must have been talented.
Yeah, they took pity on me every now and then. We got a second game of doubleheader. I used to get to play first base, catch one and play first base the second one. So that was nice of them.
It was all that natural athleticism.
Yeah, no.
Well, athleticism not required. Did you ever get a shot at a provincial championship?
Yeah, in 1989, I believe it was. Back then, or at least the Atlantic provinces, the 13U was referred to as Beaver B. So I was the B team was the second rep team, or the second tier rep team out of St. John's, and we won the provincial championship. I think we ended up winning in extra innings, if I recall. And we got to go to first time I was ever on an airplane, first big baseball road trip, traveling by myself at 12 years old, get billeted out. Beautiful downtown Newcastle, New Brunswick, which I believe is part of the Miramichi today.
You're right. Newcastle is part of the Miramichi now. 1995, amalgamated with the town of Chatham, as well as several smaller communities such as Douglastown, Logieville, and Nelson.
Yeah, one of the funny things about that tournament, all four teams had red and white uniforms.
I think every Maritime team has a red and white off-color uniform if they need to. While we're at it, let's do a little history lesson here. You did say it was Beaver baseball. 1990, yep. Baseball Canada officially changed over from Beaver to then Pee Wee, and now it's known as 13U or 13 and under.
Oh, there you go.
What can I say? Facts you probably didn't know, and useless you'll never need to remember, but learned here on the leading edge.
That's true.
Now, Andrew, I mentioned that you're from the Cape Breton Highlands in the introduction, but where is home for you?
I'm originally from St. John's, Newfoundland. Proud Newfoundlander.
We won't hold that against you.
Love Newfoundland. Every chance I get to go home to visit, I do. Big fan of the Newfoundland culture, the Newfoundland music, downtown George Street, Irish pubs. That's me. I love, I love that whole atmosphere. And when I go home, it doesn't matter how long I've been away. As soon as I get home, it's just like I've died and gone to heaven. And the people are great. Things change, but a lot of it stays the same, and it's just a great feeling, and I love it.
You just missed the Blue Star.
I'm a Black Horse guy.
It's either Blue Star or Black Horse. I know. It's one or the other, isn't it?
That's true.
Well, since you got to experience an Atlantic Championship, have you ever got to experience a national championship?
As a player, no. I did get to coach one year at a Bantam event in North Bay, Ontario. So St. John's Minor, I used to work summer student grant position with St. John's Minor baseball. Part of that job was you had to coach one of the teams. So I ended up being with the 15, well, it's now 15U, but back those days it was Bantam. And we ended up winning the provincial it was a national qualifier. We won the national qualifier and then went on to represent Newfoundland at that event. False sense of security there. We play BC in the first game. We get them down in order in the first inning. We score 2 in the bottom of the first, thinking, oh, this is pretty good. Then we promptly give up a 15 spot in the top of the second. So we had a relatively small club. I think we only took 14 players. Yeah, we were a little outmatched that week. We finished 0-5, and we were happy that we got one game. We got 6 innings, so.
Now, looking back on it, you might have been a little thin that week on the field, but I'm sure there was a lot of great memories made both on and off the field.
Oh, for sure. And then, quite honestly, that's where I had started umpiring at that time too, or dabbled into it, and just saw how those umpires at that event were having fun. And I wasn't even part of it at that point, but you could tell these guys were having fun and enjoying it. And, I was like, well, that looks pretty cool. So maybe at some point, I'll get to do one of these eventually. And so as luck would have it, as I'm sure we'll talk about, I've been fortunate enough to get to a couple of national championships.
Oh, you bet we're going to talk about that. But let's go right back to the history vault here. 1997, North Bay, Ontario. New Brunswick representatives are from Newcastle, New Brunswick, the Newcastle Cardinals.
Oh, there you go.
I tell you, the Miramichi is just intertwined in the Baseball Canada culture. You just can't get away from it.
No, you can't. And what an absolute beautiful spot. I've been up there, had some opportunities to be up there since then for a couple of events. And what an absolute beautiful, beautiful area. And what a great baseball town. Great facilities, great fans, passionate fans, knowledgeable fans. For the most part, respectful of the fans of the game. I've made a couple of calls up there that, well, just say went against the home team, but they were respectful about it. They may not have liked it, but they respected the game, and great people, great community up there for baseball.
Now, I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss the Miramichi and the great baseball community that it is. And like you said, some very knowledgeable fans and some great intensity and rivalries there. But I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever really butchered a call in the hometown field, if you get what I'm saying. But them's are some stories for another day.
Yeah.
Now, I have to ask, why did you get into umpiring?
Well, I enjoyed it, or not enjoyed it, but I saw people enjoying it, having fun. Back in St. John's in those days, growing up, we used to get a lot of the Blue Jay games, and most of our TV actually came from Detroit. So we were getting a lot of the Tiger games back in those days. So I turned the TV on, so the game would come on at 8 o'clock or whatever, and they'd always have the umpires come out there. So I got, intrigued by a couple of names like Rocky Rowe and Durwood Merrill. I'm going, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then you watch these guys and the antics. Back then, the umpires a little more flamboyant, and everybody had their own unique style, and you instantly know who was working the game by looking at their mannerisms. Like, you know what, that looks pretty cool. I think I can do that. And that sparked an interest. And I mentioned before, wasn't that great of a player. And then there was always a need for umpires. So, I started doing a couple of, I show up to a ballpark. One of my brothers were playing. One of the umpires didn't show up. So I'd end up going out and with very little or no training and do what I can. And then eventually I got into, some more formal training, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, just more out of a need. And then watching Major League Baseball and being intrigued by the antics those guys were doing. So let's try that.
Are you a Tigers or a Blue Jays fan more now?
Oh, I'm still a Blue Jays fan. I think I always will be.
Hey,
but
best team out there.
I always like the Expos too. I'm still a Jays fan at heart.
You brought it up. What's your thoughts on Major League Baseball or the Expos returning to Montreal?
I think that'd be fantastic. I've worked a couple of events in Quebec. Quebec's a very passionate baseball province. They produced a lot of good players over the years. They have got some good post-secondary and baseball schools there. So I think that would be a great fit if they could, the powers that be in the Stars line, and they get, probably need a new stadium. Yeah, I think that'd be great. If that'd be good for baseball in Canada in general too.
Oh, I agree.
And plus the local for baseball there in Quebec. But I think it'd be great for the country to have a second team.
I think so too, and I think even having a new team in Canada would just rejuvenate the baseball culture. I know, especially with the expansion in the NHL, I'll fully admit it, I'm a lifelong Seattle Kraken fan.
Oh, there you go.
and I also think that I haven't missed a game yet. I just want to put it out there. Have not missed a game yet. I think even the Vegas Golden Knights have proved a little expansion is good. It brings in some people. It gives people a new favorite team that they can follow right from the beginning, right from the birth.
Exactly. And, it's good. I remember when the NBA had the two Canadian franchises of Vancouver and Toronto. That was always, it was always good to see that as well. Unfortunately, the Vancouver franchise ended up moving somewhere into the States. But
Memphis.
Again, having multiple teams, it's great. And I think that'll be fantastic if that were ever to come about again.
Yeah, I really hope so. Here's to the future. But let's look back at the past. What year did you start umpiring?
1989, I believe.
Now, you mentioned you've taken some formal training. What training have you taken over the years?
So, in Newfoundland, when I first started, the umpire-in-chief at that time was Al Scaines. He was umpire out of Corner Brook. He had been fortunate enough through the Baseball Canada system. He got to work a couple international events, so I got to learn from him. And then one of your previous guests by the name of Mr. Dave Buckingham.
Oh, Bucky.
I was fortunate enough to be taken under Dave's wing. Now, I met Dave through my brother, Dave's son, young Bucky, and my youngest brother played on the same baseball team coming through. So I'd umpire, their games or whatever, and Dave would be there helping me, giving me some pointers and that kind of thing. And then I got an opportunity to start umpiring the junior and senior leagues in St. John's. Dave was the umpire assigner, and I worked a lot of games with Dave. That was great because I get the feedback after the game. Dave's a no-holds-barred type of guy. He'll tell, he's the first guy to pat you on the back if you do something wrong. He's the first guy to rip your head off when you did something wrong. Always wanting, I had the desire, the passion to get better. He recognized that. I probably recognized that, maybe had a little bit of a talent. Bucky's for sure has had a great influence on where I, got to as an umpire. One of the things Dave did was he brought a couple of umpires up from the States. They're college umpires, 2 or 3 years, they'd come up and do these May 24th long weekend umpire clinics, and I got exposed to some different things. Two of the umpires, we were sitting around having a couple of adult beverages one night, and talking about umpire school. Anyway, next thing I know, I'm off to Joe Brinkman Umpire School in Cocoa, Florida. I went there in 1998, and that was the last year that school operated. That subsequently got sold out to Jim Evans the following year. So now it's funny you say, well, I played my first national or Atlantic Championship at the Beaver category. That was it, gone. I went to Brinkman School, closed that place. So what do I know?
Be careful. Anywhere Andrew Downs goes, you're looking for trouble.
Yeah, apparently. But no, I got to expose that 5 week. I did the pro 5 week school. I learned a lot without realizing I learned a lot. It was a relatively small class. They took 13. I think they took 11 guys to the P bucket was called at the time. I think overall in the class size of 60, I finished somewhere around 20.
Were you disappointed you didn't get a job?
Was I disappointed? Yes and no. I was kind of like, do I want the job? Don't I want the job? I think I went with the mindset I just wanted to go learn and not embarrass myself, and I managed to accomplish that.
Not embarrassing yourself is always important, and I think quite often overlooked.
I think I was disappointed the last day that they didn't select me for a job, but quite honestly, I don't know if I would have been ready for it, and I probably would have needed to go back another year to get that experience, and unfortunately, life, things evolved, and I never got an opportunity to go back, and no regrets, but, but having that experience was just absolutely phenomenal.
Back in 98, was there still the moratorium on Canadian or international umpires?
I think so. I think you had to I think it was one of those you had to sit a year.
Okay.
So if you got selected, you had to sit a year, and then for the visa requirements, which I don't know if that's still the case today, but I know it was back then. From
what I hear from some of the guys that have gotten in, it's essentially get the paperwork done as quick as you can, and they process it, and you're ready to go.
And one of the cool things about that, too, that umpire school is like all the guys you used to see on TV are actually there instructing you. So I had Bruce Fremming showed up. Oh, wow. Joe Brinkman obviously was there. Jeff Nelson, he had just got hired in the National League that year. Was one of the lead instructors. Eric Cooper, he just passed a couple years ago. Yeah. Cooper was there as an instructor. I think Ted Barrett showed up, the Cowboy. Joel West was there. Charlie Rutherford, I think, was also there. So there was a bunch of people that came through there that you got to meet and have a chat with. I got some pictures there somewhere as a young, skinnier umpire at that school there. Pictures with the Cowboy Joe. And so that was those experiences. It was kind of nice. It was good. And one of my instructors was just in. I think he was in A-ball at the time. He got hired. He worked at the World Series last year. It was James Hoy. Yeah. So James was there. Great guy. Him and Jeff Nelson actually came to the airport to pick me up.
Really?
When I got off the airport. Yeah. So that was cool.
Pretty intimate moment then, where the instructors are really working to make sure that it's a good experience right from the get-go.
Yeah, it was great.
Andrew, you mentioned Eric Cooper, and Corey Davis talked about working with him in the past, the World Baseball Classic. Looking back to 98, that would have been probably right before he got into Major League Baseball. Didn't he break through in 99?
Yeah, so I think those are some AAA guys that were, I don't know, they might have been there early for spring training. It was towards the later end of the course. So it was probably early February, and those guys, they were dropped in. So they were probably getting ready to come down and work spring training.
Fair enough. Any of those 11 guys that were chosen for P-Buck eventually make the Major Leagues?
No, I followed most of their careers. Other than James was already there, none of the other guys made it. There was about a couple of guys I followed. Kevin Sweeney is the name that comes to mind. Kevin worked 3 or 4. There was about 5 of them that worked, got to AAA. Worked 3 or 4 years at AAA. I think a couple of them got a couple of towards they got a couple of major league fill-in games late in the year. Kevin Sweeney is a name that pops up because I see his name. He gets assigned. He's one of the umpires that works some international baseball. I think he's worked with Trevor Grieve, and I think he's worked with John Oko as well. And he was one of my classmates at the time.
Fair. I think Kevin was supposed to work the qualifier last year with Trevor in Arizona, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, I think you're right.
If you look back at 1998, it probably was a little bit difficult for some of those guys to move up the ranks eventually because there was a big move in baseball in 99. So naturally, there wasn't a lot of jobs that opened up in the following years. Yeah. And just like Baseball Canada and generational umpiring, could be a while before you get your chance.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a tough go. The way things worked out. Even if I had gone back the following year and got a crack, I may not have made it anyway. You know, you never know how these things work, but there was a pretty much, remember reading an old book, I think it was Derwood Merrill's book or one of those guys or Ken Kaiser, basically they had to check the obituaries every day to see if they were going to get hired, to see if there was an umpire that passed, so they might get a chance to get promoted.
Well, isn't that just the definition of turning a negative situation into a positive experience?
Yeah.
Okay, back to baseball in Newfoundland. Do you ever work any big provincial championships?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple. The one that really stands out in my mind, Dave Buckingham had some faith in me, and he assigned me to Game 5 of the senior All-Newfoundland final between St. John's and Corner Brook, which is a huge rivalry in Newfoundland baseball.
Only natural.
In those days, they were playing 9-inning games at provincials, and of course, that was a bit of a difference for me because normally regular night we'd work 7 innings. Okay. So we get into late in the game, St. John's were ahead, and they made a pitching change. Corner Brook came back and tied the score, and lo and behold, I end up going extra innings. The place is packed. The beer tent sales are going fairly well. It's a Saturday night, nice humid night. At the bottom of the 11th, Corner Brook had scored a run in the top of the 11th to take the lead. And St. John's had a couple of runners on with 2 out. Corner Brook catcher looked up at the batter just about to hit. He says, "Hey, wouldn't be something if you did something here to end the game." And the batter just kind of smirked at him. And I'm going, I'm thinking to myself, that's a pretty odd statement to say. Then the first pitch fastball, boom, hits it over the left field fence, walk off home run, St. John's win, and we're out of there at 11.
Gotta love it.
That was pretty cool. And then shortly after, I moved to Nova Scotia. So that was the one and only time I worked the senior All-Newfoundland plate assignment. And to me, that stands out as probably one of my favorite moments of umpiring in my career.
Now, I know we talk about international and national championships here a lot in Leading Edge, but the reality is there's a lot of great memories that are made working the games in your home community.
Oh, for sure.
Looking back on it as a kid, you probably looked up to those games and went, how can I get involved with that? What am I going to do to be there? And here, you're the umpire.
Yeah, and some of the guys I went, like I said, I worked with St. John's Minor coming through, and the guys I played with, or they were better than me, were playing in that game too. So it was a different relationship. They're playing, but I'm umpiring, but yet it's all that small community. We all know each other, and it was good times for sure. Well,
in my opinion, the most important thing that baseball provides us is the sense of community.
Yep.
It's often overlooked, but I think it's really important.
And then, of course, just off topic, but when I moved to Nova Scotia in 2000, I guess, they threw me into the Nova Scotia Senior League right away. Really good baseball. And quite honestly, the caliber of baseball at that time in the Senior League was much better than what I saw in Newfoundland. So it was a big adjustment for me to see the speed of the game, the players, and then having to handle situations. And I think they were at that time using aluminum bats at the senior level. So it was quite an eye-opener.
Yes. At that time, were they using the 2-umpire system like they are now?
No, at the time it was 3. We're back to 2 at the senior level, except for the playoffs. But we were working 3-umpire. Okay. The beauty about that, I think I went 4 years. Well, all I worked was 3-umpire.
Okay. So I
got pretty comfortable and pretty good at it. And that certainly helped me prepare for nationals, where you work most guys you work 2-umpire most of the year, and then you try to find a few games to get yourself ready or get the rust off or whatever before you go to a national event. But I had 4 years in a row where I think I worked every game with 3 umpires, so that certainly helped. And they get into the senior playoffs, and I think I had a streak in the early 2000s where I did 7 Game 7s on the plate, and I did 3 in 1 year.
Oh, wow. Go-to guy.
Apparently. But yeah, no, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it. It was tough because one series, both semifinal series, they played back-to-back nights, so we had 2 pressure-packed Game 7 plates back-to-back, and that was pretty mentally draining.
For sure.
Fortunately, the second game ended up being a bit of a blowout. Not that you put it on cruise control, but the pressure wasn't as intense. Mm-hmm. But still, you still had to go out. You still had to work. You still wanted to do a good job. And I'm one of those guys that I really want to do a good job because it could be the last time I work a game. You never know what can happen. And I just want to go out and do the best I can and give the best honest effort that I can. And over the years, having that work ethic, sometimes you get the benefit of the doubt every now and then when you kick one. or they're as a little more forgiving than they would be with others. So
if you work hard, they'll go, Andrew usually gets that. So Andrew must be right.
yeah. No, I know when I kick one, and I know that just work harder and work harder and not miss it again.
Fair. But survey says you're right.
That's right.
Who are some of the guys that you worked with there in Nova Scotia when you first moved there?
Oh, good question. I worked with Blaine Gallant, Andy Callahan, Ken Evans. He was one of the guys I worked a lot with. And those are probably Jody Frowley too, of course. I don't want to forget Jody. I worked a lot of games with Jody as well. Those guys were, I learned a lot from those guys. How to handle the game management. I learned a lot of game management skills from those guys and stuff that you shouldn't do.
Right. Yeah.
Stuff you could do and stuff you couldn't do. And those guys pushed me too, especially Ken Evans. Like he had been around, he went around for 30 years. He'd worked that league since the Nova Scotia Senior League, he probably worked the first game for all I know. He's been around that long. And, but he put you in these situations that you weren't really ready for, but he'd make you in these uncomfortable, like game assignments or whatever. And he'd put you in these pressure packed scenarios. And Ken was good that way. Good learning. It was good learnings. And, of course, Blaine, and go out there with Blaine. And of course, Blaine has, I don't know if you never met Blaine, but he has his own unique style of tackling situations. So, some things I learned, that won't work for me. But no, it was good. Those guys were, it was good that way.
Since you bring him up, did Blaine ever have to carry you like he carried Ashton Liskey at the 2019 Senior Nationals in Miramichi, New Brunswick?
Oh, no, we'll leave that alone.
Okay, looking at Nova Scotia, what is one of your favorite parks to work in?
Beasley Field in Dartmouth. I like it there. Good baseball town, intense games there. I've umpired a lot of good games. I've been exposed to a lot of good baseball at that park. And for atmosphere, I'd have to say Memorial Park in Kentville. Yeah, the setting of that ballpark, it sits down a little valley. It's a beautiful, beautiful park. For those are the two in here that I enjoy working.
Dartmouth, I tell you, there's a lot of culture there in the Dartmouth baseball scene. The Moosehead Dry have been a big name on the Baseball Canada circuit over the years. Some big hitters and just an organization that's first class. They are, and they still are. I had a lot of respect for those guys, the dedication, the time they put in with that program. And even now, I've been around working that league for 20 years, and you see the mentality of the winning desire is there, and it's ingrained in them. And as you see some of the older players retire, like Darren Doucette, Joel Irvine, Jason Bailey, those guys were household names. And if they weren't going to nationals, they were one of the first threes. The teams are knocking on the door, say, "Hey, come play with us." No question. At a national event. And now you come through, you got guys like Chris Head and Chris Thibodeau. Chris is actually playing some professional baseball, I think, over in Europe somewhere. They keep finding guys, and a lot of players want to play with them. Right. And it's one of those organizations that they want to play with. Yeah, very solid franchise. They've had some success over the years, too. They won 20 provincial championships, and they've had some success at the national level, winning it a couple of times, I believe. Yeah. Or have come close winning. And just from what I hear in the circuit, the volunteers within that organization are second to none. You talk about, the volunteers, the people behind the scenes. One of the ladies that work, Lorna, she always worked the gate. The ticket taker at the beginning, they pay your admission to come in, hand out the programs, and that type of stuff. And Lorna Walsh was always there, and she'd always had a big smile when we'd come down, out of our classy umpire dressing room in the back of my car to come down and work the game there. And she'd always had a big smile, always a big supporter, always wanted to make sure that you were taken care of. She'd have water for you if you needed it. If you needed anything, you went to see her. And now I think her daughter is still, Lorna's gotten a little older now too, so she's not as involved, but her daughter has picked up the torch for her. And it's always a pleasure going to the park and seeing her. And even when the Dartmouth senior team aren't there, but there's games on at Beasley Field, could be an under 21 game, it could be the 18U league playing there, and she's there helping out, doing whatever she can to help support baseball in Dartmouth. It's hard to find those people. Just outstanding. No question. It's people like Lorena Walsh that really make the game of baseball important for some of these communities. Interestingly enough, a couple years ago, I'm looking through the online media and I stumble across this article about Lorena Walsh. One of the interesting things about these people that give back is they do become very important. And the team calls her mom.
That's true. That is very true. Yep. And she's, they're all her boys. They're all her boys.
To find that article, check out our show description. As always, the link will be there. Now, moving on. Andrew, how many national championships have you been part of over the years?
I think 17 or 18, I think, as a umpire or a supervisor. I think I've supervised a couple of more than I've umpired, but I think it's around 17. And I also had an opportunity to work the college, I think it was SEBA Nationals in Moncton, where I met you for the first time as a young up and comer. I think you were running a triathlon the same weekend. I think
I did a half.
And you were
marathon,
you were trying to figure out how not to umpire on Sunday.
Yeah, I was going to make some kind of foolish comment about there was 8 slots and 9 umpires, but that's why I ran a half marathon on Sunday, a solid 1:30.
I remember that. And it was cold. All I remember for that tournament, it was cold.
It's great running weather though, but it was wet. A lot of fun.
Yes.
Now, the games that I worked, I was probably one of those guys that teach a lot of people what not to do, but we won't go there. Run with it.
Right on.
Where was your first championship?
Windsor, Ontario in 2001. And
we're going to Windsor. It must be a Bantam tournament.
It was Bantam in Windsor, yep. Funny story. Not really a funny story, but I'm going to take you down a story.
That's why we're here.
And my first national experience, how that played out to what we get today at a national experience is night and day. So I get to the hotel, no communication with anybody beforehand. Now you get all these emails and this is your crew and this is the hotel you're staying at. Please be here by X number of time, right? So back then I showed up at the hotel and the supervisor knocks on the door and says, who are you? So I tell him, first tournament? Yep. So the supervisors are going around and trying to figure out who's here, how many tournaments they've done. And there was 15 umpires. So what they did is they figured out the seniority of all these umpires. And the 5 guys with the most the most experience became the crew chiefs.
Okay, I like where this is going.
So we go to the pre-tournament meeting. So they announce the 5 crew chiefs. Then they tell them, okay, put your name in the hat, pick out 2 names. That's your crew. And pick out I'm serious. And then pick out another one. Here's your schedule, and you can figure out the rotation. And if the crew chief doesn't want to work a plate, he doesn't have to.
Holy frig, that seems like organization 101.
Well, that's how it went. I'm going, well, this must be normal. But no.
What not to do?
No, that was my first experience. And, I had a okay tournament. First time I enjoyed it. Learned a lot. Nobody warned me about the heat, the southern heat up there, and how hot it gets. And my first plate job was, I had Alberta and British Columbia on the second day at a noon start, and it was about 40 degrees, and I got through it. I don't know how I got through it, but having grown up on the East Coast where it's, you always get the wind chill in the summer on the water, coming off the water. It was a bit of an experience, but I've learned now from that to make sure I hydrate, make sure you nutrition's a big part of that as well. So you got to prepare that. It's things you learn as you go. But yeah, so from that experience now to when you go to a national championship today, where you get it's a lot more professional. The supervisor send out your welcome letters, and sometimes depending on which event you're at, sometimes you'll know who your crew is going to be, where the location of the pre-tournament meeting, and those type of things. So when I first started to where we are today, it's night and day, and we are much, much better for it. I think that event started to trigger changes slowly going through. So it was interesting for sure.
Well, I'm glad you survived it.
Oh, yeah.
What are some other career highlights you have?
I did 2002, I worked junior men's in Corner Brook. That was a fun event. There was only 9 umpires at that one. Some really good umpires at that one. That's where I first met Mark Bodwell. So I got another Bodwell story. I'll open with that, then I'll come back around to it. I worked single site in midget in 2013, back again in Windsor. And then I worked my first senior men's at the single site in Quebec City. And that was another fun experience. you may have alluded to on the show before. That's the one where the Canada Cup crew lost a couple umpires for injury or whatnot, and we had to we got the crews all. We worked some. I think I worked a Canada Cup game in that event as well.
Okay.
Having to work, then I got to work senior men's in Dartmouth. That was a fantastic experience there. One of my favorite events was I got to work the Canada Games in Sherbrooke, Quebec. And as an umpire, you only get to work that once. If you're ever fortunate enough to be considered or be awarded that event, jump on it, take it. What a fantastic experience. The baseball was good. You got to go see other sports. You got to interact with other national officials from different sports. And I got to run into some people that I met through my employment or I had met in Newfoundland that I didn't realize that were involved in national level sports. So you get to run into those guys.
Oh, interesting.
I was fortunate enough to be selected for the inaugural Tournament 12 at Rogers Centre in 2013. That one didn't end so well for me. I got a concussion on the second day on a plate job. So that one kind of ended my event there. But great experience to get to work at Rogers Centre. That was fun. I got to work the senior men's in Victoria. I run across a fellow by the name of Mark Bodwell, in Victoria. So I had umpired that in 2002 with Mark in Corner Brook, and Dave Buckingham was there umpiring at that event. I was there, Bodwell. I think Andrew Higgins was at that event as well. So we were sitting around at night. We had some rain or whatever. We're sitting around at night, having a adult beverage and a game of cards or whatever. And Dave Buckingham could not remember Mark Bodwell's name for the life of him. The legend of Bodwell, BC. Bodwell is the only way. You're from BC, but I can't remember your name. So that's where Bodwell, BC came out of, and it kind of stuck. So fast forward about 16 years later, Mark and I are assigned together. We weren't on the same crew, but we were at the same event. And sit down, we're going out to dinner, and I'm having a drink with Mark, and we're just sitting there talking about the old Corner Brook tournament. As you know, you may know he's a big Arsenal football fan. So, we're talking a little bit about that and just having a grand old chat. And then during that event, he announced that this was going to be his last year as a national level umpire. And so on the Sunday, I think I worked the bronze medal game on the plate, and he, I think, worked the gold medal game, if memory serves, at first base. So, of course, we're done. We go out, we watch the final. Great ball game. And I think Mark left everything he had. When that third out was made, I think he was holding back the tears and just reflecting on an opportunity he had all those years umpiring at the national level, and the pride and the work and the dedication that he put into it. It was a great way to see, in his own home province there, and an umpire finish his career. It was a great feeling to see that. And then it's the things that happen. The baseball is the baseball. I forget who wins half the time. It's the stories off the field and the relationships that you build and the cool things that you get to see or experience. And I just felt that was probably the most memorable. I don't care about my last game on the day. It was seeing that experience for Mark, and it was great.
That's what it's all about. Most of us get into umpiring because we enjoy the game of baseball. You mentioned it. You might get into it because there's no umpires available. But at the end of the day, it takes us on this journey. Everyone's journey is a little bit different. Bucky's been to 2 Canada games, but those are the jokes and things that we have along the way. And It's about supporting one another in the umpire family along this journey.
Exactly.
Because if you weren't an umpire, do you really think you would have had the opportunity to visit all these places that you would have?
No, not especially out west. Probably wouldn't have got that opportunity to do that, to see Victoria. I've been fortunate enough. I think I've umpired in every province across Canada, and I know I've been to every province as an umpire. May not have been at a national, but I have umpired in every province.
Fair enough.
And I've also, with my administrative roles with Baseball Canada, I've been to every province attending a national convention as a member of the Nova Scotia, or the province of Nova Scotia, attending those events. So I've got to see this country, every province of this country, through baseball. Not a lot of people get an opportunity to do that. And I've been very fortunate to see very nice parts of this country that I didn't even know existed, from, having off days or the travel day on the Monday, or sometimes I'd go out a couple of days early or stay an extra day or two on the back end to explore. Baseball has given me a great opportunity to see different parts of this country in a different way and to get to meet people and experience things. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's great. It's great.
Oh, no question. I think it's Dave Cass. He might not have said it on our show, But I've talked to Dave Cass in the past, and one of the things that he said, and it's always stuck with me to be the best umpire I can be kind of off the field, is that he can go to any province in this country, get a flat tire, and call somebody that he's met along the way to guarantee to come help him out.
Well said. I agree with that 100%. Well said.
Just speaks to what the Baseball Canada umpire program is all about, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Now, looking back at it, end of the day, what is your favorite championship?
Nationals?
Yeah.
Probably the senior men's in Dartmouth in 2019.
Senior men's in Dartmouth in 2009, you mean?
Yeah, 2009. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, 2009. Yeah.
Is that the year that Steve Bootang was there and a little bit of a fog delay?
Yes, yeah. Steve, I actually umpired that game with Steve. Steve was I was on a crew. Steve was the crew chief. I was on that crew, and I forget. We had Dave Lavarado, God rest his soul. Yes. Dr. Dave from Ontario. What a true gentleman.
Yes.
I roomed with Dr. Dave at that event. Yeah, we had a fog game, and as would happen, the fog rolled in, and the ball got lost, and ball dropped in, 2 runs scored, and Bootang, I wasn't quite sure what exactly happened. And, of course, it was at the secondary park. It was at the mainland common in Halifax, and, of course, I try to avoid that park if I can, especially when fog rolls in. But, so we ended up having to, suspend the game because of fog. And then the Quebec manager wanted to protest because of weather. And I said, you can't protest it. It's not a rule. It's not protestable to go,
Yeah, it's exactly.
Can't go away. And then we ended up resuming the game the next day. I had the plate, so I ended up finishing the plate with 2 different, they split the crews up. So I ended up working with 2 different guys to finish that one, but it was there. And then I was fortunate enough to be selected. I get a story here. It's a good one. Selected to work a semifinal plate between Alberta and Newfoundland. And I was over the moon excited to get in the semifinal plate at a senior men's event. Like that's a great assignment.
Oh, no question.
And over the moon excited to get it. And I got to work with my crew for that game was Dr. Dave, Scott Mills, and Bootang. Corey Davis and Andrew Higgins were the supervisors for that event. Brian Hodgkin from Manitoba was there as well. So we had a local umpire. He'll remain nameless. He was very eager to get into, very passionate about umpiring. He was young. He wanted to get into the national program. And, we were moving him in that direction. And so he volunteered that week to be one of the drivers for the umpire crews, which is good on him. Get question. Some exposure, get some FaceTime, and
it's all about the family.
And so Corey being Corey and Andrew, they like to, we don't know these guys. They're known to play a prank or two in their day, and guilty by association here. This umpire, I don't know what's going on at this point, but they filled me in after to play along. As the story goes, I went back to my room after getting my assignment. I was happy. I wanted to make a few phone calls, and I was pretty tired because we had worked that suspended game, and then we worked 2 other games that day, so I was a bit tired. So I was going to have an early night. I wanted to get some rest. I didn't go out to grab the late supper and a couple of drinks, so I packed it in early. These 2 guys decided to do was tell our young umpire there that I got mad at my assignment. I freaked out. I ripped the assignment up. I threw it in their face, called them everything under the sun, told them they didn't know what they were doing. And so they had to suspend me from the event. They were sending me home. That's why it wasn't out partying with them. And I had to go back and pack up my stuff and be out of the hotel and all this, other stuff. Of course, the young umpire says, yeah, I can see that. Andrew's got a little bit of a temper there. I can see him doing that, right? Throws me right under the bus, right? Just curves me right up. So now they got him hooked. Then they fill me in. So I said, okay, I'll play along with it. So next morning, I go down and I'm checking out of the hotel because we had a hurricane, or we got delayed because of rain. There was a hurricane or a tropical storm that went through. And so we knew the games. We're gonna finish the tournament on the Monday. So I check out of the hotel. I'm going down to the lobby and I'm bringing out my stuff to my personal car. So this umpire's down in the lobby. Brian Hodgkin sitting there reading the paper. The young fella's waiting for Corey and Andrew to come down because he's their drive to the ballpark. So what Corey and Andrew do, they decide to go to the mainland common
Okay.
I was working the game at Beasley. Brian Hodgins is sitting there, and of course the umpire's hanging around waiting for Corey and Andrew. So I go over to Brian, I shake at him, I go over, I shake it, put my hand out. I said, Brian, I really apologize for last night. I didn't know what came over me. I was, totally embarrassed here. Thanks for all the feedback this week, but I'm probably sure it's not going to do me any good because I'll never umpire again. And Brian's going, okay, Andrew, God bless and, be safe. So anyway, I go out to the car and I go off to the ballpark. Meanwhile, the umpire's taking Corey and Andrew over to the other park. I go umpire the game. Things were going great, but then what happens is Corey and Andrew get back to the Beasley right around the bottom of the 7th. So of course then he sees me out there, and then we're walking off the field, and that's when the gag was up. He had him hook, line, and sinker for sure that I was being suspended and everything else, right? So we had a good old laugh about that one. It was probably one of the funner, your good buddy there, previous guest on the show there, a good friend of mine too, Mr. Nash, fell victim of one of those practical jokes at the Canada Cup when it was a fill-in there. So
yep,
sure you probably heard that story.
Oh yeah, Corey's taken a lot of jokes out of the guys over the years, and especially if you're volunteering, heads up.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And then I was fortunate enough to had supervised Jeremy the following week or the week after at his first national, I think, in Dartmouth at 13U. So I got the umpire with and then Jeremy had an experience there, and then I got to go back work that university championship in that same year, and I asked Dave Cass if I could have Jeremy with him because I saw some potential in Jeremy and I wanted to work with him on field, to be more of an on-field mentor type thing.
Right.
And work with him, and that was great. I also had that same opportunity a couple of years later with Ryan Garland from Newfoundland. I had supervised Ryan in his first event in, I think we were in Charlottetown, if I'm not mistaken. Then I had him the following year. Then the following year, I was a late-minute fill-in at the 13U Atlantics in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. One of our umpires, Nova Scotia, that was assigned, had to pull out last minute due to a work commitment. So I filled in, and then was fortunate enough to have Ryan on my crew that week. Having supervised him the year before, and then having him as a crewmate, I got to share some experiences and offer him some tips, which I think have helped both of them over the course of the year. So it's a great thing where you can supervise, and then a role change the following year, or circumstances change where you get to umpire with them in the following year, and you get to have those different experiences.
No question.
And I get to share my knowledge in a different way, and hopefully, and I think it's helped both of them over the years. So
yeah, we've talked about that here in the show before, where umpires work together. 1 year they work with the supervisor, 1 year, and then a couple years later they're working with their supervisor. It just shows that even though in the moment they're a supervisor, they're still an umpire. It's just the classification for the weekend and the weekend responsibilities. I recently took in this year's Super Clinic, and I heard a philosophy, Mike Muchlinski, Major League umpire, said it, and I've always thought something along the lines, but I've never been able to put it to words. But he says, tonight I work a big game on the plate. The next day I work third base and second base, so on. It's not that I work any less, it's just my responsibilities changed. And I really like that philosophy, and I think that's what supervisors are.
yes.
But going forward, I really think that's how I'm going to handle responsibilities in general at events, umpire, supervisor, on field, off field.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I did have an opportunity to attend the first Super Clinic. I was fortunate enough to get on the first one.
Yes.
And wow, I tip my cap to the folks in baseball, British Columbia, Baseball Ontario. A lot of good people, friends of mine that are leaders in those areas out there. What an amazing job to putting that stuff together. Just hats off. Just one of the best things I've seen in a long time.
I think so.
Really good work there.
A lot of good work. That the COVID has put us into a situation where we can't do some of the traditional stuff we've done, but I got to say, the product they put out there this year is top notch. You know what? Given the situation, you're doing it from the confines of your living room. It's fantastic. And I got to say, thank you to everyone that's put a lot of effort and time into making sure that this year is as successful as it can be, given the climate that we're in. Since we're talking national championships, got to ask here on the show, you've had the opportunity to be part of a championship in the Miramichi as a supervisor. Come on, fill us in. What was it like?
Yes. Actually, the year in 2013, was the first time I umpired in Miramichi. I had an opportunity. Dave Cass and Mike Doucette called me and said, "Hey, you want to come up? We're having a pre-Canada Games event with the 4 Atlantic Province teams. You want to come up for the weekend?" I said, "Sure, I'll come up." So I got an opportunity to work with Jeremy Nash and Miles Brito that weekend.
Yes.
Miles, great guy. I haven't seen
local legend in the Miramichi for sure.
And every time I get a chance to work with Miles, or I know he's around and I'm working the plate, I always give him a big Miles Brito strike 1 call just to get him going.
Oh, you might not have a shoulder if you're popping the strike 3s. He can rip them hard.
Oh, he can.
Or as Dave Cass likes to refer to him as the cap.
I got a chance to work up there. It was great. And then 2019, I had an opportunity to go back as the supervisor for the senior men's event. Wow, that was a first-class event, I have to say. The host committee were fantastic. They were very attentive to our whatever we needed, which was very little. But if we needed something, they were right on it. Great facilities. The hotel was fantastic. I just say, what a great experience there. And the championship game, good crowds. And, of course, it always helps when the home team wins.
Oh, no question.
Yeah, but it was one of those scenarios where I was supervising with Mitch Ball from Alberta was with me. If you know Mitch is he's a big structure. Yes. And I said, "Come on, we got to go down and make a path for this. If this doesn't go well in Miramichi lose, we got to make a gate for these umpires to get off here without getting." As it turned out, we didn't need it, but we were down there to support those guys, and what a great game.
It was. I had the opportunity to be there live. What an atmosphere that was. It's always nice when the home team wins, like you say, but really, how often does the home team get to win in front of, 3,800 fans and streaming live on Facebook? And I think there was something like 6,000 fans watching there. It's just impressive.
Yeah, the 50-50 was pretty good, too, because we were getting calls from all across the country there. Buy us $20 for the 50-50. So we were buying tickets for guys in Ontario and Quebec and BC and just e-transfer me $20. I'll go get your tickets for you. And it was great. And I have to say too, Darren Scott, another good New Brunswick umpire there, he had an outstanding week and got to work. Not many umpires get an opportunity to get to work a gold medal game in your own home province in pretty much your own backyard.
Oh, no question.
On a big stage. So Darren did a fantastic job there that week, along with the other umpires that were there as well. I don't want to discount the work that they did, but Darren was lights out that week.
Well, someday I hope to have Darren here on the leading edge, and I tell you, I do want to ask about that game because, like you said, not too often you get to do a game in your home province, but there is something about doing a game of that magnitude in a field that you're comfortable with, that you've been there once or twice before.
For sure.
It just changes the dynamic of everything. Even though it might seem like a routine game, the dynamic was 100% different. Something he'll never experience again.
Yeah, exactly. And he did us proud that night.
Okay, let's change topics here. Let's talk international events. You have some international experience, don't you?
I do.
How many events have you been to?
I got an opportunity to work the inaugural World Women Championship in Edmonton, Alberta. That was a different experience for sure. 7 inning games, fun. Get to work with some good Canadian umpires. Rob Allen was there. Lisa Turbot, Gwen Young from Alberta was there. Corinne Daou from Quebec, and Bryce Payton from Alberta was also the Canadian umpires. And then there was an American umpire, and then there was a Chinese Taipei had an umpire there. There was an Australian, and I think Taiwan had an umpire there as well. So some language barriers and stuff there for sure. When I got on the plane to go to the event, there was 8 teams. When I got there was only 5. 3 of the teams had dropped out late. So what ended up happening, there was more umpires there than there were games. So you'd work 1 game a day, or you were the standby official. Okay. So sometimes you got a game, sometimes you were the standby guy, but you still had to, be there and be prepared if you had to jump in. Right. We were working 4 umpire all week. It was a good experience. I got a couple of stories there. I had to work second base between Canada and the U.S.
Oh, wow.
The Australian umpire had the plate, and I had the my two other crewmates were the Chinese umpire and the Taiwanese umpire. Okay. They were working the corners. So the Taiwanese umpire decided that he didn't like the way the Canadian pitcher was disengaging the rubber, and proceeded to call time, go to the mound, take the glove from the Canadian pitcher to show her how to do this.
Oh, okay. A little education session.
Yeah, a little education session with about 5,000 fans there, and I'm trying to find a hole to crawl under in second base. And the Canadian manager, Andre Lachance, came out, and he was rightly so agitated. Yeah. And so we were able to diffuse it, and the game carried on. But it's one of those weird experiences. And then
what not to do?
What not to do? Yeah, for sure. And then I worked Australia, U.S., and I think it was a crossover game. I think it was at first base, and the Australian manager was a little upset about the strike zone. I get a pulled foot at first base. So I got a safe off the bag. Of course, the call goes against Australia. So the Australian manager's name is Grant Weir. So Grant comes out, and he's a little agitated. But I know, knowing the game, what's going on, like I know he's upset, not really mad at me, but he's mad in general. Okay. And so he's doing the whole song and dance. He takes his hat off. I tell him to put his hat back on, and he spikes his hat. So I got to throw him. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because I know he wants to have a conversation with the plate umpire, and then I look around, and there's no other umpire coming over to get him out of there, right? So I finally look at him, and I say, Grant, pick up your hat. He's not going to come down. You're not going to have another chance to have another say. And I said, I know you're probably not mad at me. You're mad about the situation. There's nothing I can do to fix it for you. Yeah. And he's not going to come down. He's not going to come down. You're not going to have a chance to have your money's worth with him because he's not coming. And anyway, he puts his hat off he goes. And I get in the room after the game, and I got the supervisor standing there just clapping his hands, going, good job. Yeah. So anyway, and then of course I made the paper the next day. You see a picture of in the Edmonton paper there of me with the manager, so that was pretty cool. And then I was very, very fortunate to be selected to work the 2010 the World Juniors in Thunder Bay. And interesting with that event is I got to work. There were 6 Canadian umpires there, including Mr. Cass. Trevor Grieve was there. Jamie Killingsworth from Ontario. Trevor Dury and Chris Wellheim. In my first national event in Phantom in 2001, Trevor Dury and Chris Wellheim, that was also their first event. Oh, wow. At a Baseball Canada Championship. And I was actually on the crew Chris and I were on the same crew. Okay. And then the three of us got to work our first international men's event together in 2010. So, we talk about, I think if people on this mentioned before, you enter the program with a certain group of umpires and you progress your way through. Trevor and Chris are part of that group that I started with. Fortunate enough to get some chance to work some higher level events and really enjoy that experience.
Is it the Downs generation, the Drury generation, the Wilhelm generation? What should we refer to this generation as?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's quite interesting, though.
Yeah, it was great. And then, you get to see some of the umpires from different countries. I'm still friends with. I've met there. I still talk to some of those guys on Facebook. Wow. Occasionally. I got to see Trevor Grieve umpire for the first time. I just went, wow. Yeah, he worked the play. Cuba got upset earlier in the round, and then they ended up having to play Canada. No, they had to play Cuba, U.S. Had to play in a quarterfinal. Okay. Because of the way the games went, and Trevor had the plate for that one. And I had worked a game at another park, and then went up to watch the game, and Trevor just umpires on a different level. And he is, well, it was phenomenal just to watch that one experience. And Trevor's had a lot of success post that as well, and well deserved on him. Fantastic umpire, great person, great teacher, great mentor.
Well, Trevor is Canada's representative for the 2020 Olympics, going to be hosted here, of course, in 2021. Yeah. And I had the opportunity to see Boots in 30 a couple weeks ago, and Trevor was on as a guest, and according to him, it's still on, so that's great news. All the best to him. And according to Trevor, there's a rumor that he has taught Stu everything that Stu knows.
I also heard that rumor. Yeah.
Over time, we'll make that rumor a fact. But I have one question from that championship. Is it true that you have a tradition to sweep the bullpen plate when you work the foul lines?
Well, all right, here's the story. Trevor Drury gets assigned to work. Trevor worked the gold medal game in, I think he had left field. I had to work the bronze medal game the day earlier in the day. I got to work the right field line. The guy, I forget which umpire was working third or left field. He always swept the bullpen plate. It was one of the international guys. So the running joke was the left and right field umpires had to sweep the bullpen plates. So Trevor doesn't realize he has to do this. He brought his base gear for the game, didn't bring a plate brush. So I had my gear bag there, and I said, "Here, Trevor, take my plate brush, and it's a big game. Take my plate brush and carry on." Never thought anything more of it. And so Trevor apparently used this plate brush forever. And then last year at the senior men's event in Victoria, Trevor's at that tournament, and I'm getting ready to go out and work the plate in the bronze medal game. And Trevor comes over, hands me back my plate brush that I had given him 10 years earlier.
Oh, that's awesome.
With about 5 bristles left on it.
Oh, yeah.
Big game. Here you go.
Typical Trevor. Borrow your plate brush and never give it back. But you got to keep those bullpen plates clean. Try saying that fast 5 times in a row. Ooh.
Oh, for sure.
Never know when you might have a close pitch out there on the bullpen plate.
Exactly.
Okay, let's bring it back to Canada Focus now. A couple years ago, you had the opportunity to live in Western Canada for a brief stint. Now, one of the perks about the Baseball Canada umpire program is your registration is kind of portable, so you can just pick up the phone and, start working some local baseball. So you had the opportunity to work in the Western League. Fill us in.
I did. I got to work almost a full season in the Western Major League. I think I probably worked close to 20 games.
Okay.
Real good baseball, some really great facilities. You got to work at Okotoks. Most of the games I worked Okotoks, Brooks, and Lethbridge. So 2 of the 3 of those cities were not bad.
And we're not going to call it which one, but
no. But no, and I got to work with some good guys. I got to meet some good guys or people I have seen at national events over the years that really get an opportunity to work with. So my opening, I got assigned to work the home opener for Okotoks. There's on a Friday night, they had about 5,500 people there. Yep. I think they were playing Medicine Hat, if I'm not mistaken. Chris Hartley was working the plate. I had first. Jeff Wang was at third. And the game ends on a first to third rotation there, and Okotoks went on a walk-off after a ball gets booted in the outfield, and I had to make a big safe call at the plate there to sell it to get out of there. So that was my first experience working the Western Major League, and I said to myself, if this is what this is like every night, this is going to be fun. Then I quickly learned it's not quite like that every night. And
well, Okotoks is special in itself. They run a very big baseball program. They bring in 5,500 people. Edmonton at times can bring in some big fans too, big numbers, but they have a bigger stadium, so sometimes it doesn't feel as warm and receptive. The one thing about the Western Major Baseball League is I think it does afford umpires the opportunity to get better.
Absolutely.
Maybe just to get your opinion on this, you've worked with guys at national championships and females and everyone in between. You go and just work a game in a new environment with those same individuals that you've met in their home environment. What's it like to work with guys that you would see at a national championship? Do they work different on a Tuesday night than they would at the championship?
Yes and no. The guys still want to do a good job. It's just that there's not as much. And I was fortunate enough. So I worked a lot of games. I was doing a lot of baseball Alberta games. So I was working a lot of 18U AAA, or I was doing a lot of games. And so I was getting to work with guys in that type of environment where we're working 2 umpire. We could have a laugh. We're having a good time, getting caught up. So I got to work against like Matt Payne and the Alberta guys. But these are guys I saw maybe once at a Pee Wee event in like 5 years ago. They come out and they found out I'm there. They go, "Oh, I want to work with Andrew." So I'm getting a different partner every night, but different people that I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
Some really good people. And then, I worked 2 games in Calgary with somebody, and then 2 other crew just finished on another part of town, and there was another crew. So the local watering holes there. So after, we worked a double header, all the 3 crews or 4 crews we had together, we go out and have a late supper, and and a bite and a chin wag. And that was the best part, the camaraderie off the field. You just sitting there sharing stories, different experiences. And that part was fun. And then getting to work with, some different guys. Like I umpired a few games with Matt Payne. I got to work with Mitch Ball for the first time.
Yep, Bridge.
Working games on Lethbridge. They were fun games.
Yep.
Enjoyed those. Then I get I get a weekend series in Brooks, Alberta. Fort Mac are in town. So with the 3-game series, it's all good.
Yep.
And I got to work with Don Buskus.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever met Don, but
yes, I have.
Yeah, Don is a fantastic individual. So Don gets to the hotel ahead of me, and anyway, we connect. I come upstairs to the room, and the first thing he does is hands me a jar of his infamous or famous rubbing mud for baseballs.
Yes.
And we sit there. We have a grand chat with, we hadn't seen each other in about 5 years, because I think first time I met him, I supervised that I think it was a Canada Cup in London, Ontario. And I met Don there for the first time, and we hit it off fairly well, and then we got talking, and it was great. And then, Don's just one of those guys. He's just a nice gentleman. He's an umpire's umpire. Like, he's the guy that makes sure you got everything you need, that you're comfortable, that you're okay. He goes out, he works hard, and I keep reminding him, work harder, work smarter, not harder.
Yes.
And what a great guy. And probably one of my favorite umpires of all time to work with, for sure, Don Buskus.
No question. Don Buskus is the type of guy that makes you as an umpire want to go back to the ball field night after night. He's the type of umpire that looks out for his partner and makes sure that you're not left in the dust and you're included. And just to give Don the credit that he deserves, 2020, Don was presented with the Steve Bluet Hero Award. And that's an award presented by the Baseball Alberta Umpire Association that is presented annually to an umpire who, through both word and action, demonstrates some or all of the characteristics of our dear friend Steve Bluet: courage and tenacity in the face of adversity, an ability to motivate and inspire, a commitment to self-improvement, resiliency, grace, and generosity. So, Don, congratulations on that award in 2020. Shout out to Don.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
And the one more thing I got to say about the Western Major Baseball League, or now it's known as the Western Canadian Baseball League, is that it just gives the opportunity to umpires to get better. You know what? Every umpire, if you get the opportunity to work that league, go out, work it, but work your hardest, because it is a league that deserves the utmost respect and hard work from us umpires, because they give us the opportunity to get better.
Right. And I couldn't agree with you more, because the skill set of the players, the speed of the game is so much faster and quicker. And you got to be on your toes. You got to learn to anticipate. And it certainly, there's no doubt in my mind that when I went into the league, it was like, oh, I'm just hoping I'm here, I don't embarrass myself. And then I got comfortable with it, and it was like, I'm doing, this is pretty good.
Right.
And it was just one of those things. It was a test for me as an umpire, because you get comfortable working your local senior league all the time. You're the big dog in town, or you're one of the top 2 or 3 guys you see all the time. And like I mentioned earlier, you miss a call, they give you the benefit of the doubt type thing, and you go out there, they don't know you, and you got to go out, work hard, and earn their respect. And you treat them with respect, you got to go out and earn their respect and work hard. And it was a great refresher, like one of those little jolt in my umpiring career, to put the fire back in. Wanted me to, this is fun, I want to go do this again. And I want to go back out there every night and work that high level game and give it a good effort and come home. So it was good.
It definitely is the high level baseball here in the western part of the country. It's a lot different intensity than senior baseball in the Maritimes.
Yeah, for sure.
And you talk about having to earn respect. One thing that a Woodbat College League provides umpires is that you might not get the same players or coaches or managers back around next year. There could be a whole new cycle of people. So it's a constant be on your toes. Now, some towns, communities, or teams have kind of the same staff, but that's not always the case.
I was living in Airdrie, so I'd work a lot of games in Okotoks with the Okotoks regular program. So I was there probably 3 or 4 nights a week. If I wasn't working the big dog games,
right,
I was working their 18U or their 15U program or whatever. So it's the same people always around. So you're out, you got to work hard on those too, because they'll remember what you did your 18U game, and then you're out, working the dogs. You got to give that same effort. So
right, they expect that and they deserve it.
Exactly.
Okay, Andrew, let's get off the field and talk about your Baseball Canada accolades. You are the 2013 Dick Willis Award recipient. What does it feel like to be part of that club?
I came as a complete another shock and surprise. Yeah. So what happened? It was that right around that time, I was still the provincial supervisor of umpires for Nova Scotia. And traditionally, the supervisor of umpires would meet once a year at the Baseball Canada AGM. What had happened this year, there was a bit of a transition from the old system to the portfolio system that we have today. But this was in its infancy concept. The provincial supervisors didn't really get to go attend that unless you were a portfolio candidate.
Okay.
So I wasn't at the convention that year. Holly LaPierre, I don't know if you know Holly, but Holly is
big baseball
one
Canada
of our
name.
great former Baseball Canada treasurer, one of the great volunteers in Canada for baseball and especially female baseball, like outstanding.
Yep, and out of Nova Scotia, I think we should mention she's out of Nova Scotia, and I think she was just named to the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum Board of Directors for all her.
Yes, she was.
So,
yep.
Definitely a baseball name in Canada.
For sure. So Holly calls me up and said, "Hey, you're on the executive. All the baseball Nova Scotia executive are going to be at the awards banquet on the Saturday night. It'd be good on you to come down, represent the board, type of thing. It's just one of these things. When Holly calls and tells you need to do something, you pretty much got to go do something. So anyway." He gets me there on a false pretense, and I'm going down for a free meal and just, saying hello to a few people there to represent the province. So they get into the awards and they start reading out some stuff, and I go, "Oh, that sounds familiar." Uh-oh. And then all of a sudden it kicks in that, whoa, they got me here for this, and it was quite humbling. Very surprised. I'm very honored to have received that award. And I look at the names on the people that have won that award prior to me and people that have won that award after me, and I go, wow, it's a pretty good group of people there.
No question.
For sure.
A bunch of years later, but congratulations on the award.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
Now you're talking baseball Nova Scotia executive. Maybe one more thing we'll touch on away from umpiring is currently you're in the role of, president of Baseball Nova Scotia?
Yes. Yep. I am the president of the Baseball Nova Scotia. So
sorry to hear about that.
In 2006, I became the provincial supervisor of umpires, and I held that role until 2017 when I switched over or was elected as the president. The short version of how this came about is there was a bunch of bylaw changes that were made, and then we had to have an election of officers, but that election got challenged, and then we had to redo the election. And the president who was overseeing that at the time had been in the role for a while and said, "You know what, I'm out. I got a work commitment, so my job has changed. I don't know if I can put the commitment into the role." And Holly, that we just mentioned, calls me up and says, "You'd be a real good fit for this because I'm still running my Hammonds Plains minor baseball, and I don't want to give that up." And Ken Linehan was also there. Ken's another great baseball. The Linehan name in Nova Scotia is a well-respected baseball name. So Ken was the vice president of operations. He was running Bedford baseball, and he says, "No, I don't want to give that up. I've been doing that for years." And you're the only one that's been around on the board long enough know the histories, know the backstories on some of the issues that we have in the province. And you've been at the Baseball Canada level for a while, so at least they know who you are and you have some sort of rapport, at least name recognition or and I said, "Okay, I'll put my name in." And sure enough, I got elected.
And here we are.
And yeah, here I am. So that was in 2017, I think. I think I've been elected. I had to be elected 4 times now because of different things, but I'm good for another year now, I think. So I'll have to go through that. Any more nominations from the floor? No, I'm good.
Fair enough. Well, I think since 2016, there's been a lot of positives for Baseball Nova Scotia. 2019, you came away with your first Baseball Canada Cup championship.
Yep.
Had the opportunity to work that tournament, so it was really nice to see a Maritime province do well because in numbers-wise, the Maritimes sometimes just don't compete with the big provinces. So it was really nice to see the Maritimes do well. Yes,
absolutely. I know New Brunswick tend to fare fairly well at that event over the years. Nova Scotia, we did well, and the baseball gods were in our favor that year. I think there was a lot of 1-run or 2-run games, or you get that that key defensive play, you get that big out. The baseball gods were certainly on our side as a province that week, and hats off to the coaches and the coaches and the players and the representative. It was a big accomplishment because that group had finished well the year before. It just got the breaks this time, so Good on them.
Well, not to take away from their win, I remember sitting down the line. I think it was after game 3, and I'm just leaning over the fence, and there's random people beside me, and the game ends, and the person looks at the guy he's with and basically goes, "Man, that Nova Scotia team, they just get the bounce when they need it." Like you say, they got the breaks, but you know what they say is that you got to capitalize on those breaks too. So they put themselves into a position to capitalize on the situations at hand. It was like I said, it was a lot of fun to see a Maritime team do well and really be in it right to the end. Well, Andrew, let's move on to 10 questions, a fan favorite here on Leading Edge. I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to answer them and defend the answers if I like them. And if we disagree, it's pretty simple. Ready for it?
Yep. No, let's go.
Okay, let's start easy. Do you prefer the Big Mac or the Whopper?
Whopper.
Get a Whopper heavy all? Extra mayo, extra tomato, oh yeah.
I gotta get. I throw some cheese on it.
Gotta ask for a little zesty sauce. You add that, and you're all set.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If you owned a boat, what would you name her?
901C.
I was thinking Lukey's boat, but if we're gonna keep to a baseball reference, then we'll keep it to a baseball reference.
Okay.
Now, I had Kent Walker on a couple weeks ago. A Maritimer, says he doesn't like seafood, so I don't like to repeat the questions, but what's your favorite type of seafood?
I have a seafood allergy. Yeah, I know, for the Maritimes, I can't eat it, but I do. I can cook mussels and lobster, though. I can cook it.
Fair enough. So, okay, like I keep telling everybody that keeps asking about seafood, I get these text messages every week about the people that might live around the sea, and they don't like it. Yes, Maritimers just don't really eat a lot of seafood. Since you're in Sydney right now, you ever work in a coal mine?
No.
Doesn't everybody in Cape Breton work in a coal mine? You, Rita, McNeil, and the Men of the Deep.
Oh, the Men of the Deeps.
Oh, yes.
Yes, well done. The Men of the Deeps. They're actually currently recruiting new members for their vocal group there, and we had an opportunity to see them a bunch of times. They're fantastic, fantastic group.
So, you gonna join? You got a deep voice.
I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket.
Well, you got that deep baritone voice. You'd sound fantastic with them. Well, it's hard to believe, but we're almost at the end of the episode, and I haven't done a post-show edit. That just shows how perfect Andrew Downs really is. Being an Atlantic Canadian, anytime you get to drop a Rita McNeil reference or get to promote some of the Maritime music, we always do. So check out our show description. You're going to find a link to Rita McNeil and Men of the Deep's Workin' Man. Now, back to the show. Well, since we're talking about Cape Breton culture and music, how many times have you seen the Rankin family live?
Twice.
They are
in St. John's.
Oh. Just on the east side of Signal Hill.
Yeah.
Okay, then what's your favorite Rankin family song?
Mull River Shuffle.
Check out the show description. I'm going to put a link to a great Mull River Shuffle, even though it was recorded in Vancouver. I got to say, one of my favorite songs, I think, is The North Country. And I could...
That's a good one. That's a good one, too.
Since you're living in Cape Breton, have you ever got the chance to drive the Cabot Trail in completion?
Yes. Last summer, we had an opportunity to do it quite a bit. And tubing down the Margaree River was the highlight of the trip.
Something like 273 kilometers. It's just through massive terrains. You get to look out over the water. It's just phenomenal. So if you get the chance to ever head to Cape Breton, please do it. Talking Cabot Trail, have you ever got the chance to play the Cabot Links or those nice fancy golf courses they got there now?
I can't afford to say those names, let alone the green fees there, so no.
What are the green fees there, like $350 a piece?
That's in the off season.
Yeah, the shoulder seasons. Yeah. Well, Cape Breton culture, do you own a kilt?
I do not.
Do you know the Downs tartan? No?
Yeah, it's not pretty.
No. Oh, fair enough. You mean they don't sell them on every corner store, like kilts for sale?
No. But a lot of the businesses here have Celtic in it, though.
Always get a little Irish or Scottish culture when you're in Cape Breton. Now we're going to talk culture, okay? 2020, we were supposed to host the Baseball Canada Senior National Championships in Cape Breton.
Yes.
Of course, didn't happen. Okay, wait one second.
They were originally 2020.
Okay.
And then they agreed to switch years with Red Deer.
Okay.
So Red Deer were going to host in 2020, and then Sydney agreed to take 2021.
Fair enough. It's kind of all confused, but let's just say Sydney's probably gearing up in the next couple of years to host the senior championship if we get back to where we intend to.
Yep.
You got a crew of 15 umpires and supervisors in town. Where are you going to take them to eat?
There's a place in North Sydney called the Black Spoon.
The Black Spoon. What's the specialty?
It's probably the best restaurant in Cape Breton. The food is just absolutely phenomenal and affordable.
For umpires, that's really important. You wouldn't want to see them spend their per diem.
$65 a day per diem.
Oh, yeah, like they got the raise and they still don't want to spend any of it. Most of them want to take it home.
Yeah.
First rule of the per diem.
Spend it in the city you got it from.
Thank you. That is the first rule of the per diem. I'm glad that you are able to recognize that without any queuing. You're supposed to donate it back to the local economy, whether it's donating it through the 50-50, putting it into the local watering hole, or just giving it to the local concession. The money stays where you got it.
Exactly.
What's the specialty on that menu?
The Cajun seafood pasta, I'm told, is absolutely to die for. It's my better half. It's when we go to the restaurant there, that's all she orders. Okay. And she almost wants to take another one to go home so she could have another meal later. It's nice. That good.
What do you go for?
Oh, I'm a steak guy.
Oh, yeah.
Steak.
Okay, Andrew, moving on to another section, Leading Edge. We like to call this section Local Legends. Essentially, this is where it gives you the opportunity to tell us about people who are giving back to baseball or umpiring in your local community. There's
a couple of names that come to mind, and one guy's out of Halifax. His name is Peter Foley. The other name is Dartmouth, Ken Hertling. These two umpires, after they stopped being on the field as an umpire, they took on a mentor role. These guys did a signing for years. They did all the stuff to make sure games got played, helped teach clinics, organize clinics, did a lot of mentoring. And between the two of them, I think they probably had close to 70 plus years of volunteerism within the umpiring community. Unfortunately, these two gentlemen were supervising and mentoring games all last summer. And unfortunately, we lost Peter and Ken over the winter. Life got caught up to them, and they passed on. The legend that these guys and the dedication and time that these gentlemen have given to baseball umpiring in the province is second to none, and they'll be surely missed. So those are the first two names that come to my mind that were just outstanding people that did a lot for their local baseball communities.
It's hard to replace 70 years of volunteerism like that. These are the people that really give back to our communities, and they will be missed. I've never had the opportunity to meet them, but I know that type of individual, you can't replace that.
Exactly. And then, of course, throughout my time here in Nova Scotia, you see the efforts of Joel Rogers, Ken Evans, Blaine Gallant, Jody Frowley. There's a young umpire here in Cape Breton that's taken on a UIC role, is doing a great job. Mark Morrison, Skylar Blanchette out of Halifax, Bryce Mason. You may have met Bryce. He's new in the national scene. He's doing a lot of organizing clinics and stuff and taking on more of some admin roles. The umpiring in the province is it's going in a great direction. There's a lot of buy-in and a lot of commitment. Guys want to get better. It's, you go to Alberta or other provinces where you guys work a bunch of games, they'll go out and have a camaraderie where they go have a beer and a few wings or whatever and sit there and talk about it. That's what's the culture is now starting to become that again in the Halifax Dartmouth area, where these guys, they're all friends. They hang out. They'll go work games. They want to get better. They give each other feedback. They'll go have wings and beer and want to get better. And we haven't had that in quite a while, and it's starting to come back around, and we're starting to see when I get an opportunity to go to the mainland to supervise,
get to go to Costco,
Yeah, the Costco too, the 5-hour run to Costco, the 5-hour drive to Costco I have. But no, you get an opportunity to see and work. Sometimes I get to work some games with these guys. Yeah, we're in a good place right now. Our program's is in a good place, and we've got some really good young umpires. Oh, another guy I forgot to mention, completely forgot about, Laurie.
Yep.
He worked the Can-Am League for a couple of years.
Yes.
And finished his first full season in the Short A League, and he worked the Gulf Coast League last year.
Yes.
Yeah, so when he came back after his first full season in the Gulf Coast League, although it's a short season, I got to work the Nova Scotia Senior Playoffs with him, and
he's jumped so much, hasn't he?
He has. He's better than me. There's no doubt in my mind. Like Alex, I'm not saying I'm a great umpire. Like I'm okay. I'm good.
Yes,
Don't get me wrong. I don't want to sound conceited, but he is just head and shoulders above now. It's phenomenal. And I know the COVID's got him. I'm not sure where he's at or how his season's going to play out this year. I think they told him to stay home this year, to be honest. But I'm not sure with them reorganizing minor league baseball.
I think that's the big thing right now too, right? I mean, you got government regulations, and you got the reorganization and restructure of minor league baseball, which is going to affect a lot of umpires right now, and the pathway might be a little different in the future. I haven't talked to anybody that might know it, but if you think of it, like all these college wood bat leagues, that might be where you have to go work first before you'll get a crack at school to get a crack into something. So
right, and I haven't been really following it either, other than I know that there's some changes, and I hope Alex gets an opportunity to go back, because he's got the will, he's got the desire, he's got the tools, he's got the. I think he's got to be he's going to be successful. And then a few years ago, well, it's not a few years ago, but probably 10 years ago, we got another umpire here. He got to AAA, a fellow by the name of Troy Blades. I'm not sure if you heard of
I've
Troy.
never heard of Troy.
Troy worked the AAA All-Star game in his last year as a plate assignment.
Okay.
And worked the AAA playoffs, and he got, unfortunately, it was right around 99, 2000 there. He got caught up in that. I think that's right around the end of, maybe it was 98, somewhere around there. That's where his career ended. But he worked 10 or 11 years in the minors, AAA. I got to work some games with Troy when he came back to Nova Scotia. He worked maybe a half a season. And to be fair, I'll be honest, like he'd worked AAA All-Star game, and he's working the AAA World Series, and you're coming back and working an 18U AAA game on a Tuesday night. It's just not quite the same. And the fun, I think, it came out. The game wasn't fun for Troy anymore. But the 5 or 6 games I did get to work with him, it was just like, wow. Like I learned so much. Occasionally we'll get a message to him every now and then, and he'll come out every now and then just to say hello or whatever, but pop into a clinic every now and then. He's still I think he's still can't get him to go back. His kids are heavily involved in the curling. Okay. And his daughters have some success provincially here in the local curling scene. And of course, February and March are right off for me because I'm a big curling fan myself. So I will sit there, I'll watch the Briar. I watch the Scotties, then I'll watch the Briar. Then the games were on late last week, but I stayed up to watch the mixed doubles final with Guzio and Harrison winning. So, big curling. So World Championships coming up. That's where I am. That's my March Madness, curling.
Yeah, well, you and former guest Bob Sonder, I'm going to put it out there. Bob's a huge curler, so you can hit him up on the Facebook and enjoy it. One more thing, talking Nova Scotia before we go. One name that every time I think of Nova Scotia and think of an umpire's umpire and a guy that puts a smile to my face, Dennis Crotty.
Hell yes, sir. Dennis Crotty.
Yeah,
Dennis. Good guy. I meant to mention him earlier. Actually, it's like you name people and you forget. Like, I forgot Dennis. Dennis. Dennis umpired at the national level for a few years. I think he got to midget. I think it was the highest, or at 18U. I think that event. I think he came to he was in Miramichi, I think, that weekend in 13, and I think him and Ricky Viner came up.
I'm glad you dropped the Ricky Viner reference because I always appreciate a Ricky reference.
Cuz came up there. Yeah, Cuz came up, and
Yeah.
And then Dennis he's still assigning games in Halifax area. So another good guy. Funny, dry wit.
Yeah.
Oh, what a dry sense of humor Dennis has.
Yes, and you know what? We talk umpire. That's Dennis Crotty. And all these years, I still remember my first opportunity working with Dennis and how welcome he was. He'd come up to the Miramichi, and I'm just a young punk without a car, and he's picking me up at my house to take me from field to field. So, you know what? I got great memories. So thanks, Dennis. And he looked after me years later in Moncton. So,
right on.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, Andrew, this essentially wraps up this episode of The Leading Edge. I want to thank you for giving us your time and coming on and sharing with us a lot of your stories from over the years. One of the final things we like to do is give the guest the opportunity to part with what we call wise words of wisdom for up-and-coming umpires. So, Andrew Downs, what is your wise words of wisdom?
Oh, my. I had a basketball referee assigner tell me many years ago that the cream eventually rises to the top of the cup. So what I took from that statement was basically be patient, learn, your time will come. Always work hard, listen, be open to feedback, implement the feedback, and work smarter, not harder.
Well, that concludes this episode of The Leading Edge, where we talk with umpires about umpiring and look to cover topics on both sides of the plate. Join us on our next episode, where we bring on a man that's been a Level 4 Baseball Canada umpire since 1995, has worked 14 Baseball Canada National Championships and 3 international events, is currently waiting to be inducted into the Saskatchewan Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, and a guy that's not scared to fight you for the last pierogi, Elmer Jerkovitz. But before you go, we would like to leave you with this. There's a common rule myth that people believe you must always return the ball to the pitcher before you can make an appeal. That's like saying you must always ask your significant other before you make a purchase. While it might seem traditional, you don't have to do it. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.